Hold on 1 second, you gotta check this out. Okay, wait, did you catch that? Right when I'm at the steepest point, my whole bed rack slides forward. Here, let's watch it again. Okay, so I know that that didn't look like much, but that was actually my bed rack punching a 1/2 inch dent into the side of my cab. So getting the right bed rack is kind of a big deal. Ah, there it is. Alright, today we are talking bed racks, and we're talking 3 things that I wish I knew when I bought mine, because I have broken 2 and I learned a lot in the process, and these things can fail you at the absolute worst time. So stick around for the rest of the video and walk through the most important things you need to know when you're picking out a bed rack. Here we go. Okay, so first and foremost, we need to talk about rack styles and rack height. Okay, so really quick, let's talk lightweight solutions. You don't always have to spend a fortune to go overlanding. That's a huge mistake that everyone makes. When I first got started, I was actually running a rack from Thule. It mounted to the side of the bed rails. It was adjustable in height. When I first started, I thought that was a great idea because I would still want to be able to use the bed for hauling stuff. When you mount a basic tent on there, it's an amazing solution. So you can look at solutions from Thule and from Yakima. I'll actually leave a link to the Thule rack that I used. It really was a good rack, and I really liked it for a long time. What I did learn eventually, though, is with these lighter weight solutions, you start to want to be able to mount more things to your rack than just your tent. And then also you get into different styles of tents that weigh more. So by the time that I had a 140-pound tent on the top of my Thule rack, it really, the height adjustable nature of it really didn't matter. It still took 3 people to actually adjust the height. And then on top of that, on my first trip down to Baja, it was like a 3,200 mile loop. By the time we had went through, hundreds of miles of washboard, off-roading, minor rock crawling, racing on the beach, what I learned about these lighter weight solutions, they're just not made for heavy duty off-road. And parts started to jiggle loose and it started to come apart, and you'd basically have to tighten it every single day. That does not mean they're a bad product. That is not what they're made for. They're not made to go heavy duty off-roading. So what I would highly recommend is if you're gonna do lightweight off-road, you're gonna be driving Forest Service roads, things like that, you just wanna be able to mount a tent in a super convenient way. This link that I'm gonna leave to a Thule rack, this thing's tested. I actually would give it a thumbs up as an excellent product. These usually come to you, drop shipped. They're modular, you have to put them together, and what you need to think about when you're looking at these racks is you need to think about height, and you need to think about what you're going to haul. You need to think long and hard about both of those. First of all, let's talk height. On most beds nowadays, unless you're overlanding a full-size truck with a long bed, you've got a really short bed. So if you want to save some miles per gallon and drop your tent below your roof line, which by the way on my truck literally makes a 2 mile per gallon difference, you can get a half cab height rack. You can get one that sits right on the bed, and then you can get a full cab. Now that full cab is going to put your tent up into the wind, and it's going to lower your miles per gallon a little bit. But also you've got to think about tent length. The average clamshell tent that opens like this, okay? Those guys are 85 to 90 inches long. That's going to hang way off the back of your bed if you put that on, something with a short bed. So a lot of times with those, you'd want a full-size rack, and you'd want it to overhang the front of the truck rather than that far off the back. Now, the reality of that is you shift weight higher, you're going to be more tippy. So it's going to depend on what type of off-roading that you do. But height is a huge deal, and height totally depends on what type of tent you eventually want to stick on it, on what type of gear you want to haul on it. And I mean, if you're a hardcore rock crawler, you don't want that tent all the way up above your roof line. You just don't. Flat out, don't do it. Get a soft shell tent, or get a iCamper Mini. Drop that thing nice and low. Keep your weight low. If you're an overlander that mostly drives Forest Service roads, that's not really going to be that big of a concern for you. So go ahead and get a full-size rack. Put your tent, hang it over your roof a little bit. Call it a day. Have plenty of room for gear, and you're in good shape. Which takes us to the next thing: weight. Let's talk weight. I'm gonna do some little math here. So on my rack that I have right now, I have a Area BFE clamshell tent. It's 140 pounds. So that's mounted on top of it. Then I have 2 sets of Tread Pros. Those are 38 pounds for 2 sets. Then I have a high lift jack, and that's 33 pounds. Then I have a Batwing 270 awning, which is an additional 47 pounds. You add all that together, and if my math is correct, I believe that that's 258 pounds of weight that I have on my rack every single day. Other people are mounting fuel packs on their inside of these things. People are going crazy on these things. I've seen anywhere from 250 pounds all the way up to 500 pounds mounted on these things. You really need to think twice about the different designs out there. Some of these designs have huge bars and look like they could hold 1,000 pounds, and then yet they have next to nothing to be able to mount anything to it. I hate to throw brands under the bus, but a buddy of mine who has a Gladiator, he went out and he got a Fab 4 rack. Amazing looking rack, and I believe they literally call it their Overland rack. But the mounting options on it, it was already a very expensive rack. The mounting options that came with it were terrible. He ended up selling that one and going with a much cheaper rack from Rebel that had much better mounting options. So think about the actual mounting options. Can you stick stuff to this? It's hard to stick things to racks that just have round tubes. So RCI, the rack that I have, great example. It's the easiest rack on earth to mount things to. CBI has a really good one out there. Like I said, Up Top Overland. All 3 of those companies are making great racks as far as how you can mount to them. So that is going to bring us to the final thing that I believe is the most important thing of all. And this is the one that I think is getting overlooked. It's obviously getting overlooked because companies that have been making racks for a long time and have great reputations are still making them wrong. And this is the mounting. How does this rack mount to your truck? Okay, here's why this is important. Where it mounts to your truck, there's a million different types of attachments. I know on some of the old Tacomas, they'll give you some kind of clamp that will clamp on the side. On the Tundra, it has the tracks, so they'll try to bolt straight into the track in many different ways. On a Ford, I'm sure it could be different, and a Dodge, and all the different trucks out there, it's always going to attach differently. So you need to actually do your research and find out how they specifically attach it to your truck. So I'm relying on the clamps that they manufacture for my vehicle to actually be able to hold that thing in place when it's under load and I'm off-roading. I want to be able to go run Hell's Revenge in Moab without my rack falling off my truck, basically, right? So let's take a look at this. Here's a perfect example of what you want to watch for and make sure it's not happening. All right, so what we have right here is we have, these are the brackets that they gave me to mount into my truck. So this attaches to the actual bed rack through this bolt, and that's normally where you drill a hole straight into the side of the bed. And then down here it gives you flexibility with 3 different holes to be able to put this into a traction piece of metal in the back here and put it into the rails. Now the problem that they introduced here is where the rack connects to this. On the back you can see this. It's a pretty basic weld there. This one is still in good shape. If you look at this one, I don't know if you can see that. This one's cracked already. this one's completely broken, and this is what's happening. These little guys are just falling right out, and I'm busting them off. Because when the weight is shifting on the rack, this metal is not thick enough, and that weld is not strong enough to hold it in place. By the time I broke 3 of these on one side of my rack and 2 of them on the other, my rack was just sliding freely back and forth, and it was very dangerous, right? So what happened is they built a perfectly great rack. Love the mounting options, love everything about it. The whole top of it's strong and sturdy. It holds a lot of weight. But what you're going to notice is then where they designed it to tie into the trucks, they introduced 2 failure points. One where it attaches to the rack and one where it attaches to the slider, which is fine. It's okay to introduce failure points as long as you over-engineer them and you make them very strong. In the case of other brands right now, and I'll throw a picture of this up in a second, instead of only having 1 bolt that attaches to the actual sliders, they're having 2 per plate. And then the plates, instead of being about 2 inches where there's friction on the inside of that track, they have them anywhere from 6 to 8 inches wide. So you have 2 to 3 times the amount of friction holding it in place, and that's at 3 spots along the back of the tailgate. So for example, if you look at CBI's rack online, you'll see a different style of mounting that is a lot stronger. If you look at Up Top Overlands, same with theirs. So yeah, you're kind of probably starting to get the idea that where it mounts to your truck is a huge deal. The other thing is, why do I not just have the actual metal from the actual rack come down far enough and then just go straight into that friction pad that rides along the rail? That's what most other brands are doing. So RCI is a great company. They're super reputable. I called them when I had a warranty issue on this. They literally shipped me on 2 business day air a whole new set of plates. I wouldn't be surprised if they redesign this rack, because all they're going to have to do is just add a little bit of length to the end of there, and to accommodate different styles of trucks. But this is not to bag on them. And also, I'm testing them under extreme load, under a lot of weight, over 250 pounds of weight on medium to low end rock crawling, which just means that weight is getting thrown around and banged everywhere. So this is not to bag on them. I actually am a big fan of their products. They make great products. Anybody that's going to do regular level overlanding on regular roads, I would say this is a fine product for you. I do hope that they redesign it, because the last thing that you really should think about too is you got to understand we're loading a lot of weight on these things. Even if you're a regular overlander going on Forest Service roads and you never intend to do anything crazier than that, you could still get in a car crash. My wife hit a deer literally 3 weeks ago, and all that weight is going to shift just as hard forward, if not harder, obviously, than rock crawling, right? This is the most important point. You need to think through and plan really for a long time. What all am I going to put on my rack? What should the height be? What kind of tent am I going to run? How much weight is going to be on it? These are all really important things. And then you need to research the heck out of how it's attached to your actual truck, because that right there turns out is the most important thing. You don't want to get stuck in Moab with your truck literally banging a hole through the back of your cab every time you go down a hill, because that's what happened to me. So yeah, think these things through. I hope this was helpful. This is a brand new channel we're kicking off, so if you can smash the like button and subscribe, it helps us out greatly. We'll link to whatever products we mention, including camera equipment we use and everything like that, in the description. If you click those links, they do go through Amazon and we get a kickback. It doesn't cost you anything. In the comments, leave questions on additional gear that you'd love to hear reviews on and testing, and any questions that you have. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you on our next video. I'm out.